Sometimes I like it when I come across a series that I refer to as enjoyably flawed. It's a series that when you watch it, there will always be parts of it, maybe even large parts of it, that have glaring issues, from animation and art style to, more often, story and character development. But despite these flaws that would normally cripple the enjoyment of a show for me, it's able to mask it enough so that I can still enjoy it while being fully aware of its problems. And that's what we are going to be talking about today, because it's been almost 2 years since I looked at this series called Psycho Pass, and since then, it has come out with a second season, and there is also a film, which is nice. But I'm just going to be talking about the second 11-episode season. One that could potentially be a skippable bridge season, or a worthy piece of development required for the enjoyment of whatever comes next. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, my name is Arcada, and welcome to Glass Reflection. Today, the sequel to the 2013 anime by Production IG, Psycho Pass 2. Let's jam. The world of Psycho Pass is unchanged from the first season, albeit we are now 1 year in the future. As such, this is where I'm going to plug my review of the original season, where I went over the general setting and so forth, so go check that out if you haven't, because I'm going to do my best to not retread anything if I don't have to. The Sybil system still exists, and it's still going around judging people based on their mental state and their likelihood to become a criminal. As stated before, the whole idea of a society like this is pretty terrifying. This is a world where a terrorist has the ability, before being taken down by law enforcement, to wreak so much mayhem as to terrify you so much that society deems you potentially able to become a criminal in the future and deals with you accordingly. Even if that wasn't enough, the mental stress of knowing that such a thing could occur would sometimes itself cause it to occur. And then that just leads to so much unnecessary death. Anyway, Akane Tsunemori is still a police detective, but unlike her status of being a rookie in the previous season, she has been upgraded to head of her division. Her previous mentor, now a latent criminal, is her subordinate, and one of the victims from the crimes of Season 1 is the junior inspector under her care, and we'll get to her later. Akane still has her mindset that society is flawed, and she has seen those flaws firsthand, but somehow she still believes that the existing society can still function, and as such, she works towards benefiting it in some way. Now, when you have a society where you can judge criminals before they even commit a crime, the story usually develops into one where we deal with how the society itself is broken, a la Minority Report, and more importantly, Season 1. But because the story of Season 1 already exists, and we have already dealt with that plotline of a criminal the Sybil system could not judge, what kind of story can we tell here? Well, another one where a criminal can not be judged by Sybil. There's a certain level of repetition here in the storyline that might be grating for some. And there are quite a few plot beats, not to mention this entire arc that almost has the same format as the original season, leading up to a finale that, without spoiling it of course, has more or less an identical feel to it. And this is because the status quo must remain the same. Psycho Pass 2 has the misfortune of being almost a filler season. It's not filler in the traditional sense of the term for anime, but nothing that happens in it really changes anything all that much. It's the kind of story that has tons of interesting and exciting bits in it, but if it was ever taken out of canon or ignored entirely, it wouldn't make too much of a difference to the world. I haven't had a chance to see that Psycho Pass film at the time of this recording, but I'm going to take a gander that the majority of elements introduced in this season either won't come up again or will be completely sidelined except for just, acknowledging a few things for continuity's sake. This is especially true considering that both Season 1 and the new film are written by Gen Nobuchi, and this second season is not. Instead, Season 2's composition was handled by To Ubukata, who honestly did a very good job when you look at it. He hasn't done much with his past works including Heroic Age, Fafner, and also being the creator for Mardock Scramble. However, more recently at Production IG, they've had him work on the latest Ghost in the Shell series, Arise, something that, while it has its problems, proves that he is good with working within limitations. Both with Arise and here with Psycho-Pass, you have a story that has to be constrained to some degree by previously existing material. Psycho-Pass more so than with Arise. That said, within those constraints, the work presented does have a particular level of quality. In many ways, and I know this might sound controversial, I actually preferred the general story of Psycho-Pass 2 over the original season. There are a multitude of reasons for this, mostly in that Season 1 and Gen Urobuchi's writing style is, in general, very good at world building, so most of Season 1 is spent setting up the stage, but Urobuchi sometimes staggers a bit with actual characters. For Season 2, though, the stage is already set, so what we can have is a much more focused story, one that is far more direct and to the point, as it is assumed that you already know about these characters and this world from watching Season 1. The writing of this season is able to keep up a level of suspense in most of the show that can keep you invested, even if it all turns out to be pointless by the end because of the status quo. A status quo that I wouldn't be surprised was mandated so that whatever they did in this season wouldn't affect what Urobuchi might have wanted to do with the later film. However, considering that most of Season 1 was all about an introspection of the world itself as part of its world building, it feels a little weird to watch a story that doesn't focus on that as much. Or rather, it still does focus on it, but mostly in similar ways, and this is where my grievances with the season start to come into play. The major non-spoilerific flaw at this point would be the characters, more specifically, the newly introduced characters. All the existing characters did fine, and sometimes had some halfway decent development behind them, and if that wasn't good enough, then at least some of them got halfway decent screen time. But the newly introduced characters were never really a focus here. The biggest problem here came in the form of Maika Shimotsuki, the new junior inspector. She's a character who has a set of rules and morals for her personality, but doesn't always follow them in the way that she should. Constantly throughout the series, she questions the actions of Akane, her direct superior. She either likes to start disregarding orders, or at least very loudly and vocally disapproving of them before writing up a report to the brass. She places the rules and protocol above all else, but at the same time breaks the chain of command because she believes it's necessary, not realizing that breaking regs is the exact thing that she's criticizing Akane for. She's supposed to be a character that truly believes in the letter of the law, in the society that she lives in, and feels that law in society is perfect, with no flaws, only for her to be constantly confronted with society's flaws head-on, which causes her to ram her fingers in her ears, going la 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 la, which is just frustrating to watch. Listen to your senpai, damn it! I have more qualms, especially on the show's ending, but considering that the ending is spoilers, we'll save that for the spoiler room. In the meantime, let's move on. Most of the actual art and animation is unchanged from Season 1, and in many ways, it's still fairly generic. I'm still bugged by the design of Akane's eyelashes, and when Production IG wants to, they can make a particular scene look phenomenal. But also, like Season 1, there wasn't much here that made the series stand out overall, and again, it didn't need to. The opening, though, was a disappointment. Not in its animation, because I don't think it's possible for IG to make a bad-looking one, but in its song choice. Both in comparison to the previous season choices and even other songs by the same vocalist. I was disappointed that I didn't enjoy the opening more. And, you know, I skipped it every time after episode 1. Shame, really. The ending, though, was as good as could be expected, and by that I mean it was addictive as all hell. Like all egoist songs tend to be. To the point where I wish that that song was the opening instead. But that wasn't my decision, and it's kind of become a thing where Psycho-Pass's endings are of exceptional quality, so this is just the norm. I know I sound like a bit of a broken record in this section by constantly saying that everything here is equal to the first season, but in many ways, it all is. And, you know, the dub is no exception as well. And everybody on the English cast performed as expected. But that's kind of the thing. I keep saying that things are so much like Season 1, but that's because they are. There isn't much to differentiate this season from the original. Nothing that makes it stand out enough to be entirely memorable. And when you consider the high chance of none of it actually being required watching for the Psycho-Pass series as a whole, it just becomes an interesting way to pass the time and not much else. It's a series that started off really strong, but culminated in a climax that didn't really do anything justice. It didn't contain any semblance of justice, either. Justice should reign from above, not be squandered into nothingness, which is one of the things that's most depressing about this series. It introduces interesting thoughts that try to build off the original story, but likely, due to its own constraints, was not able to accomplish anything meaningful. As such, I have to question who the series is for. At this point, really, it's probably only good for watching if you are a heavy fan of the world and a big fan of the original series, as this feels like, you know, just a lot more of the same. But otherwise, depending on how much of the content here is required for both the film and any other Psycho-Pass projects in the future, you might honestly want to give this series a pass. As such, I present the second season of Psycho-Pass with the recommendation to stream it rather than buy. It still has a level of enjoyment that makes it entertaining enough for some people to want to watch it, but not enough that I think it makes it absolutely required watching for anyone beyond people who already really enjoy the franchise thus far. At the time of this video, Psycho-Pass 2 is available from Funimation Entertainment, both in DVD and Blu-ray home video formats, and it is also available on their website for legal streaming. Though if you want to stream it in dub, you'll have to sign up for Funimation's subscription service. Sub, however, is free if you happen to have access to their site. The review copy for this video was lovingly provided by the wonderful folks over at WriteStuffAnime.com, a fine purveyor of anime DVDs, Blu-rays, and other such merchandise for you to enjoy. You can pick up Psycho-Pass 2 from them, among many others, because if it's in print, they have it. For alternate anime recommendations, I start off with another terrorist-focused series, Zenkyo no Terror. In some ways, it is quite similar with how the plots are set up and played out, as well as the feeling of its conclusion. Second recommendation goes to Shinsekai Yori from the New World. This one also takes place in a future dystopian world that focuses heavily on the sacrifice of personal freedom for the sake of society and the broken system that everybody lives in. So between those two, you should hopefully find something that's to your liking. And that's it for me. Please subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter if you feel so inclined, and hey, if you like what I do here and feel like helping out, go and check out my Patreon page, and if you feel it within your heart, also consider donating. Very special thanks to Lulika Adachi, Grace Anderson, Halo Millennium, Joshua Garcia, Calhoun Boy, Victor Ekmark, Nikolai Gray, and Mark Robichaud for donating already. You guys are all exceedingly awesome. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty. Welcome to the part of the video where I can vent some thoughts and possible frustrations about the series that are a bit more spoilerific in nature. If you want to avoid spoilers, you have until the end of this sentence to stop the video and move on. You have been warned. Now, let's start off with the things leading up to the final episode that didn't really add up. There are many things in the series that don't make a whole lot of sense initially, and while you might be able to explain some things away internally for yourself, it's worse when the series decides to do it for you, but just doesn't do a very good job at it. Shisui is my example for this. Our antagonist, Kamui, kidnaps Shisui and converts her to his way of thinking with the help of medication, drugs, and who knows whatever else. Her conversion is not my problem. My problem is with Sybil's reaction to her conversion. See, the main reason why Kamui became so dangerous is because he was able to steal parts of Shisui's body so that any Dominator would recognize him as her, allowing him to use one. So then he started collecting Dominators and became even more dangerous when he gave others the same ability to use them. The very easy and logical counter to this would be to just revoke Shisui's permission from the system, thereby locking out Kamui and his henchmen. But when Akane herself points this out, the reaction is, well, technically they're not doing anything illegal, so we can't revoke her permissions, otherwise we're admitting that the system is flawed. Excuse me? So wait. Your laws allow it so that a junior detective can go around willy-nilly, place herself in situations that cause citizens to have their Psycho-Pass raised just to shoot them, and you have no laws or any regulations against that sort of thing? I thought the whole reason that there were biological checks on the Dominators in the first place was so that it could only be used by official personnel who were, you know, following orders. The moment that they stop following orders, they should have their access revoked. But if you are fine with it because her use of the Dominator is not unlawful, then why not just dispense with the biocheck? If the Dominators can only be used lawfully, then who cares who pulls the trigger? Should have just logged her out of the system and then problem solved. But then again, the system itself is still broken, which brings us to the final episode. Okay, So, Kamui's whole plan is to have the Sybil system judge itself, something which it hasn't done before because it's a collective entity and therefore exempt from judgment. Kamui himself is a collective entity, therefore, if you want to judge him, Sybil has to be able to judge itself. On the one hand, I actually like this a lot, and the introduction of the omnipotence paradox was quite good. Only one problem with it. Season 1 gave us the reason why the omnipotence paradox doesn't apply. See, the plan was to have Sybil judge itself, and for Sybil to realize that itself would be considered a criminal by its own rules, thus forcing lethal judgment. However, this should not have happened in the first place. The Sybil system is created entirely of the brains of former citizens that it has previously judged to be criminally asymptomatic. And by that, I mean someone that is entirely unreadable by the Sybil system itself. So if all members of the collective are unreadable by the system, then it's not that much of a stretch to believe that the collective as a whole is also criminally asymptomatic. Therefore, if Sybil did try to judge itself, it would not be able to. But instead, we have the system actually have a collective psychopaths high enough to be a problem, but you know, again, it ultimately doesn't matter because they just purge all brains that contributed to this increase, bringing the crime coefficient to 0, which it should have been anyway. Then let's top off this ending by adding in the only other character with any sense of development and suddenly make him comically evil for the sake of it. And what we have is an ending that did not live up to any of the excitement or hype from the episodes before it. Anyway, if you think as I do, or differently, perhaps, about any of the thoughts on the series that I've given out, creatively let me know down in the comments so as not to spoil the ending for others. And as usual, before you comment, leave your light novels and manga at the door. And until next time, ladies, gentlemen, and others, stay frosty.